Longbox Review, Episode 13. Hi, this is Eric from Longbox Review at longboxreview.wordpress.com.
And this is Travis from Oddfellows Thoughts at oddfellowsthoughts.wordpress.com.
Hi again, Travis.
Hey.
So we are here to talk about everyone's favorite subject, the New 52 from DC Comics. Travis and I are going to be talking about week number 3 of the New 52. But before we do that, I wanted to talk about a couple other things. So first of all, Travis, you know how usually at the end of every episode, I'm encouraging everyone who listens to this podcast to respond to us, to get a dialogue going, to get some feedback from people.
Uh-huh.
And we actually haven't gotten that much response, but I wanted to point out there's one person in particular that has been responding to us, usually over Twitter, and that's our friend Lee.
Uh-huh.
I hope he doesn't mind that I'm pointing him out, but I wanted to let him know that I appreciate that he's been commenting as he listens to our podcast. And let's see, Travis, I just found this out the other day. So last week I got a lot of hits on the blog, and so I was checking out why. That sounds bad, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I don't expect a lot of people to come to the blog. Oh, no. So I was checking into it, and I discovered a few things that I wanted to point out. I thought was really cool. It made me feel really good, and I really appreciate these people taking the effort to help promote the podcast in the way that they did. There's a website out there called growlersworld.com. And I believe he's on Twitter as Growlers World. I have to check that. But anyway, he posted a link to the website, to the Longbox Review blog, and said some nice things about it, which I do not have in front of me at the moment. Hold on one second while I do that. And in the meantime, so then there was another thing. I had posted a review of, let's see, oh boy, see, now I actually start talking about it, and everything just leaves my head. The Marvel comic Mystic, the limited series, it's one of those things from CrossGen. Wow, my brain is not working today. Anyway, so it's one of those re-releases from the CrossGen, and I've been getting those because I liked some of those titles. And I found out, so anyway, I posted a review of Mystic #1, and I said something about the art, how much I really enjoyed the art. And the artist on his blog had posted a snippet of my review of his work. So I thought that was really cool, along with a bunch of other people too. But yeah, I thought that was pretty darn cool that he did that. Oh yeah, here we go. Here's the Growlers World thing. So you go to growlersworld.com, and he has a link to Longbox Review, and he says has excellent news articles and podcasts on superhero comics. I don't know that I would agree with him totally, but I appreciate the sentiment.
No kidding.
And finally, there's a website called comicbooktherapy.com that I found where they just they just posted a link to the blog among about a dozen more sites, but sites that are far more prestigious and professional than ours. So, but I really appreciate the fact that someone put that out there. So, thank you all. I like I said, I appreciate it, and I hope to hear from you guys more. Okay. Oh, Travis, would you like to let everybody know that listen to the podcast who may not see the posts out on the internet about your video review?
Well, sure. Really, the easiest way to get to it is to go to my my website at on those thoughts. To tell you the truth, right off the top of my head, I don't even know what it is under my YouTube channel.
Isn't it
It's a
Oddfellows Thoughts?
Yeah, it's Oddfellows Thoughts too. That's right.
So
Um,
YouTube / Oddfellows Thoughts, I would think.
right,
Yeah.
right. And right now, mostly what it is, it's basically me just talking about the stuff that I've been picking up that aren't actually on my pull list, and my opinions of it, and is it going to stay on my polls list, or or am I going to put it on my poll list or not put it on my poll list?
Hmm.
Here pretty soon, me and my son, my 13-year-old, we're going to start doing each of us are going to do a comic book of the week. Where after the week's over with, we're going to go back and look at the week's worth of comic books, and each of us pick one that we either really like or we want to talk about for one reason or another, and we'll probably do some videos on it. So
Very cool.
that might be a little more interesting, just because you're going to get my obnoxious 13-year-old's viewpoint on the books that we read. So
Oh my gosh, I can't wait to see that. That'll be a lot of fun.
yeah.
Oh, and just real quick, I'm so excited about this, but Batman Arkham City comes out next week. As we sit here and record this, it comes out next week.
Yeah.
Are you getting that at launch, or are you waiting to get that later?
I probably will not get it at launch. Um, Two reasons. One, because I have fewer games I'm still in the midst of playing. I'd like to finish them, and I know if I get that game, that's all I'll be doing. And two, if I get that game right away, that's all I'll be doing. So I need to work it out to where when I get it, I have time that I can throw away, immersing myself in it.
Yeah,
It looks really cool.
yeah.
Um, and who knows? I'll probably break down and get the thing.
And
So
and you'll get it for PlayStation 3, is that right?
that's right.
Yeah. See, I don't
Well,
have.
you have to get it as a console game if you want to get it when it first comes out, right? Because it doesn't come out in a PC version until later on, right?
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, and since I don't have a PS3 or an Xbox, I have to wait
Get with the times,
for
man.
the PC version. I can't justify spending
I hear you.
how much are those consoles now?
I don't know. I have no idea.
Yeah, yeah. So
But,
and
but mine's my Blu-ray player and my Netflix watcher, and my player gets used more for watching Netflix on it than anything else. So
now see, I do have a Wii that we were given,
uh
but I don't think that game is coming out on Wii.
yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah, so I'll have to wait for the PC version, and I still haven't played all the way through Arkham Asylum.
Oh my gosh, you got to play the first. You do.
But you know what happens? I start playing that game, and like you said, I get that's all I do. I get so immersed in that game. One time I stay up till 2 o'clock in the morning on a work day because I got so engrossed in that damn game.
Well, then you obviously don't want the second one because the second one's going to be better.
I know. So I probably will wait until I get through the first game, and of course wait for the PC version to come out. So I won't be there at launch even for the PC version, but that's okay.
Christmas is coming.
Ooh, good point.
Yeah, that's what I figured will happen. So,
And Santa, I have been a very good boy this year, at least in my imagination.
sure.
Okay. All right. Let's move on to week 3 of the new 52 DC Comics.
Okay.
Starting off, we go in alphabetical order. Oh, and I want to mention to everyone, this is we may mention some spoilers. But here we are. It's almost a month later, and probably by the time this episode does come out, it will be a month later from when these comics were first published. So I really hope that I don't have to say it's a spoiler review, but anyway, just in case, not
If you
everybody.
haven't read these yet, what's your problem?
No, let's not insult
Except
the
for the ones
audience.
we say suck, because good for you for not buying those.
Oh, right. Oh, okay. Uh, all right, let's start off. Batman. This will be fun. This is by Scott Snyder. Art by Greg Capullo, with inker Jonathan Glapion, and colors by, boy, does that say FCO Placencia?
Yeah,
FC,
I don't.
yeah, I don't know that. Um, okay. Do you want to start? You're a big Scott Snyder fan.
Yeah, I am, and I love this book. This is I mean, they don't really need to introduce Batman
Mm-hmm.
per se because, okay, if I mean, everybody knows who Batman is, right? I mean, I don't think there's anybody probably anywhere except for maybe in some third world country who doesn't know who Batman is.
Mm-hmm.
So they don't have to spend a lot of time on really introducing the character.
Mm-hmm.
They can spend a little bit of time introducing, the way, Scott Snyder's going to address Bruce Wayne and Batman. But I don't even think he's got to spend a lot of time doing that. I think it does start a new beginning, though, just with the way, he's talking about Gotham and that, Wayne Industries. Is it called Wayne Industries? Whatever it is. How they're going to, change the face of Gotham again.
Mm-hmm.
And stuff.
And that's a theme that's been running through the other titles as well. So I like that they're doing that.
Right. I like I said, I think this is some of the best Batman work that's out right now. This quickly gives you an introduction to a large cast of villains. You don't get to see a lot of them, but you at least get to see them right off the bat at the very beginning. So if you aren't familiar with the Batman villains, but you're just familiar with Batman, you get quite a cast of characters that potentially to show up at some point down the road. Can I mention one thing that just immediately popped out, and maybe I just don't remember seeing it? I know it was in the latest Batman movies, but they show Gordon smoking. I can't. No, seriously, I can't remember him smoking.
Oh yeah, that's something from that I believe we saw in Batman Year One, way back when.
Okay, way back when. I haven't seen him. I don't remember him smoking in a long time.
Well, and he may not have, but it is part of the character's history. Although this is the new 52, so
okay.
But obviously they're taking that.
Maybe just the panel where he's gesturing with his cigarette. That just I don't know. I mean, it just surprised me. I mean, like I said, I know the character in the movies smoked, but I just don't remember offhand ever seeing, for a very long time, seeing Gordon smoking. So
Mm-hmm.
it threw me off. I spent a lot of time after that wondering, does he smoke? I didn't think he smoked.
Yeah,
but
yeah. Well, it smoked, and he also did a pipe for a while, way back when.
well, yeah, I remember the pipe.
Yeah, it's part of the previous universe version of him. So
yeah.
But doesn't and maybe I'm thinking of all these are running together, but doesn't somebody call him on that, and he makes some comment about it? I think it's the other comic, one of the other Batman comics that I read.
Could be. I don't know. It just surprised me. Maybe, like I said, maybe it's just me. Someone out there can tell me I'm wrong, but it just seemed to me like I haven't remember him having that vice in a long time.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Mm-hmm. Well, and this is the new younger DC universe, so to me it makes a certain amount of sense considering what has happened before. So
yeah, okay.
And smoking appears to be a vice of some cops, if you believe TV shows and movies. That has nothing to do with this, but just thought I'd point that out. Anything else you'd like to say about Batman #1?
I like the art. I like the new artist.
Oh, I'm glad you brought that up.
What's that?
I'm glad you brought that up.
You don't like him?
I'm not saying that.
What's your issue, man?
Okay, so as I mentioned earlier that it's by Scott Snyder, and you're a fan of his, and this has been a long-running dispute between us because I have not been a big Scott Snyder fan. However, this comic, Batman #1, I think has turned me around. And Swamp Thing as well. Those two comics together, I'm becoming a fan of Mr. Snyder's work.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought this Batman book. I honestly didn't think that I was going to be that interested in it. I love Batman as a character, but I just haven't been really into the Batman books in general. I mean, I really enjoy Grant Morrison's stuff, so I've been getting that. But the other books, I haven't been really following that much, really. But this is a book I will stick with for at least a little while, based on the story. I like the elements that Snyder's putting in there, and the ending. That's a hell of an ending. We'll get to that in a second. Okay, but so there's that. I'm looking forward to this. I can't wait to read more. Okay, Greg Capullo on art. I love his Batman. I cannot stand his Bruce Wayne and other people that aren't in masks. So when you get to so you have the opening scene where he's fighting all the villains and stuff. That's all really cool stuff. His Commissioner Gordon is fine, I guess. But then you get to the part where you see Bruce Wayne and Dick, and those are okay. Although his work reminds me a lot of old McFarlane. And I thought, well, that's, I guess you could do that way. I mean, maybe I don't know Capullo's work in general, but
I don't either.
It just really struck me how this looks like old McFarlane. I'm like, why would you basically copy somebody else's style? And I don't know, maybe that's probably unfair to Mr. Capullo, but it just really struck me when I first saw that. And then when you get to the scene where Bruce is at the gala or whatever, and he's doing his thing, and then he ends up talking to this one other guy who wants to what's his name? Lincoln March, another CEO. Look, if you look at those two, especially there's a panel, a close-up panel of their two faces, and the construction of their faces, with a few exceptions, these guys could be almost twins. And so I have a little problem with artists that don't provide more distinct looking characters. And Capullo does that a lot. I just don't like that. Now his when he gets to his Batman stuff, Harvey Bullock looks like Harvey Bullock, and like I said, Batman looks good. But I don't know. I'm a little concerned about that, but that's a little nitpick, I'm sure.
But all the pretty people look like all the other pretty people.
Well, they shouldn't.
That isn't really? Okay. It depends on your opinion of the pretty people, I guess.
Yeah. Oh, and then one last thing on his art. So we get to that scene where we see all the former Robins. Well, two of the former Robins and the current Robin. Anyway, so there's that panel with all four of
all the Waynes.
Yeah, basically all the Waynes. So my problem is, so there's that panel in the middle there, but the panel above it, when we first see Damian and Tim. So look, if you look there, you look at the height of those two characters, and then you look at the panel in the middle where it shows all four, and the height seems to change a little bit, and I have a big problem with that. That always bugs me when artists don't get the character dimensions correct, and mostly I'm referring to like when one artist does it in one book and another artist does the same character in another book.
Right.
And they're not getting the height right, or the the basic features of the character's face or something like that. So that always bugs me. But again, that's just a minor thing, I guess. But it just sticks out to me. But this is a first issue. I'm sure Capullo will grow into it. And I mean, overall it looks pretty good. So I'm just nitpicking now.
Yep.
And because are we talking about? Yeah, we are talking about Nightwing today. So you take a look at how Dick Grayson looks here, and then then when we get to Nightwing, I'll have more to say about that.
Okay.
So, so what about this ending? What'd you think of that?
That's pretty interesting, isn't
it? Yeah.
The fact that the DNA goes back to Dick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That boy, I got there. I'm like, oh my god, I can't wait to read issue 2.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of these books, a lot of the New 52 books, are doing these quote unquote cliffhanger endings, and they usually do that in comics anyway to get you to come back the next month. But man, the endings for a lot of these new number ones have been, I think, pretty darn good.
Yeah.
Makes you want to read the next issue, which is exactly what they should.
Exactly what they're right. Yeah. Right.
So yeah.
The only other thing I thought was interesting about this is it seemed to me like if we were going back going backwards and in this reboot, everybody's younger and earlier in their careers.
Hmm.
I thought it was interesting how comfortable Harvey was with Batman, because
Yeah.
I always thought that they had an adversarial relationship early on,
Yes.
and they
They did.
grew into having less so of one.
Well,
But
Dan DiDio did talk about, or maybe it was Jim Lee or Jeff Johns. I can't remember who now, but one of them talked about how so this, we're 5 years into the new DC universe at present time, and so all this other stuff, a lot of this other stuff that we've read over the years,
uh,
all this other stuff we've read over the years is compressed in that 5 year time span, which I can buy that to a certain degree. So
right,
like you, I thought of that as well about Bullock. And I thought, well, maybe it was that first year where he was very adversarial, but over the next couple years, um, he's grown to appreciate the Batman and actually,
sure.
gets along with him and stuff. So I guess I
Well,
can buy
I'm not,
that.
I'm not saying it. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I was just commenting on the fact that I thought it was interesting.
Oh yeah,
You know,
yeah,
I've been trying to make it a point of when I read any of these new books to keep in mind, it's a new book, and therefore I can't bank on all the prior
hmm
knowledge we have about these characters, and and then read this stuff and go, that isn't right,
hmm
because obviously stuff has changed. So
right.
did this work as far as if you were new reader friendly?
Um, Considering what you said before about, we assume that most people don't need to be retold Batman's origin. Yes.
Right. Yeah.
And I'm not saying that all of these books should start from day one of their career and we get their origin story and all this crap, because we don't. Because
Oh
God,
yeah.
that would be
Oh God,
boring
no. Yes, it would be.
to read all through these like that. Yes, I think this is a highly successful first issue for Batman. I like this much better than Detective Comics #1.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I
I
know,
like Detective Comics too,
oh yeah,
but this definitely.
I know I'm already going to drop that one. But Batman, for the foreseeable future, I will continue on with this one. Oh,
Cool.
one last thing, unless you have something else. What do you think of the
Nope.
Riddler with his question mark mohawk?
Eh, I don't know. I don't know about that.
I know it's kind of silly,
Um,
but
yeah. Well, they all look kind of funny to some degree. I mean, well, I guess how else does he have to identify himself? I mean, you notice they all attempted to do something to reestablish themselves as being what I mean, besides those like Two-Face and Killer Croc that obviously have normalities that make them who they are.
oh, you're talking about
If
the
you're setting in
masks?
prison, yeah. If
Yeah,
you're setting in prison, what else are you going to do to continue to maintain your idea?
yeah,
Well, he doesn't got anything else. So obviously, carving his own hair into a Riddler and whatnot, into a question mark and whatnot would be, I guess, appropriate.
yeah, yeah. I like now that you mention it, I like Professor Pig's
Yes,
mask.
where he ties up the mask like that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's pretty creative.
yeah,
And of course, you got the Scarecrow there, who's that version. And so that mask, I don't know, I haven't read a lot of the Batman books, but that mask reminds me a lot of how the Scarecrow looks in the Arkham Asylum game. Has that been something they've incorporated into the the titles before now, the Batman titles before now?
yeah,
Okay,
yeah. It's slowly been moving that direction.
yeah. I like it. It makes sense.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
All right, shall we move on?
Sure. So we talking about Birds of Prey next?
Yes.
Yeah, Birds of Prey and what? That's written by Dwayne. How will we say his last name?
Swarzynski.
Swarzynski. Okay,
That's how
and sounds good to me. And Jesus um, Sands. And what did you think of this title?
Hmm. So I went into this title again unfairly because after it was announced that it would not be written by Gail Simone,
Uh-huh.
I was like, I don't know about this, but I'll try it out. Plus the characters involved. I really like the Birds of Prey that were in the previous incarnation of the title.
Hmm.
So, I mean, we have Black Canary, but then we have this new gal, Starling,
Uh-huh.
which that's fine, new character. I could go with that. And then, of course, on the cover we have Katana and Poison Ivy. And I thought, well,
Right.
that's an interesting mix, but I'll give it a try. And then when I read it, I was pleasantly surprised a little bit in that it was okay. I liked the character interactions between especially Canary and Starling. Although I think Starling, I don't know about you, Travis, but Starling reminds me. She seems to have some of the personality of Lady Blackhawk, and I don't know if that was intentional or if I'm just seeing that. But it reminded me of her, and I actually didn't mind it so much.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Um, The only thing, I mean, I didn't, the whole bit with the reporter following them and they're supposed to be this clandestine ops group. I don't know if I buy that so much based on what I see here. Um, that bit was okay. That's just, that's just the plot to get the whole thing moving forward. I really like, though, the end of it where however Canary was affected by that kiss.
Right.
I want to see what's going on with that.
Yeah.
Now,
So
go ahead.
now when you say affected by the kiss,
Hmm.
and then you say the ending, I didn't put those two things together.
And they may not be. When I first read that, I thought that there was a causal relationship between the two,
Uh-huh.
because I thought, well, maybe that kiss affected Canary's control over her sonics, and that's
Mm.
why the guy has bleeding eyes and a nose. I thought, well, and plus she herself says something about that weird tingling in her brain, and then you get the Starling saying something to her, but it's in a weird kind of word balloon. And I thought
Right.
maybe it's a sonic thing, but then of course, then he blows up.
Right.
So
Well, that's a good point because I guess that explains when the guy that kisses her makes the comment, "I'm the one that just killed you,"
yes, exactly, yeah. And you
and
can see on his lips in that panel, he's got something on his lips.
oh, yeah, they're not just weirdly colored. Okay, I didn't really think about it being
Well,
that way, but that makes it interesting. I just assumed at the end of the book that the reason she's acting the way she is because they're using some sort of a sonic device or something to trigger him blowing up in some way,
oh,
like he's
and then framing.
and it's affecting her because obviously she has to have some part of her ability to scream. She has to have something that protects her from her own scream, right?
Hmm.
You'd think, and I just assumed that it was affecting her in an odd way based on that. But
Yeah.
that's an interesting thought. I didn't really think of that.
Well, now that you mention it, that's your your take on it is probably more accurate.
Well, I don't know. I mean, it could be either. It'll be interesting to find out.
Yeah.
I thought it was cool though when the guy blows up. I really like this comic. I thought that this was using the Birds of Prey name. Um, Now, I'm a huge Gail Simone fan, love her to death, love pretty much everything she does and whatnot. I like this much better than the last run of Birds of Prey.
Really?
Yes, this felt fresher. It didn't feel weighed down by stuff. To me, it felt like because I've read every run of Birds of Prey. First run was amazing. Pretty much everybody that took over after Gale did a great job on it too. Kept what Gale had started going and the relationships between those ladies and whatnot, and that was all great and stuff. The second incarnation that Gale comes up with has those relationships, but it almost felt weighted down by that, or weighted down by something. I don't know if that's because they had this constant change of artists or what. It just felt like it never felt like it could get its feet underneath it and get going somewhere.
Hmm.
Whereas this felt just right out of the bat, that it's going somewhere. They're obviously at the beginning of building a team. Canary and Starling have some sort of working relationship, and she's working on a team. I thought the interaction between Black Canary and Barbara Gordon was a bit strange.
Hmm.
The relationship is obviously different. I mean, I would assume because that's not how we've seen these two characters act with each other for a very long time.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's definitely more distance between the two of them. They've obviously had a working relationship at some point,
Right.
but there's some more distance there. Um, yeah, I'm excited for this comic. I like the characters.
Did
I
you
like
s- did you see the solicitation for issue number 4?
I
It's
don't
got
remember.
it's got Batgirl on the cover.
Yeah, I hear she's going to be in it some. What is that, like December or January, something like that?
I believe so, December, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So it'll be interesting if she's going to be back. I mean, it makes a certain amount of sense. Obviously, to some degree, they're operating in oh yeah, it's that god awful David Finch cover. Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see. I'm curious to see how they work Katana and Poison Ivy into the team.
Yeah, and so that's it. That's one thing I wanted to bring up too is I've never really been a big fan of Katana. So I mean, a superhero that uses a sword that steals your soul, that's a hard sell for me. Unless she actually uses the damn sword. And considering that they're going to go up against villains, various types, I would expect her to actually use the damn sword.
Uh-huh.
So if they do that, I'll be fine with it. But during that, remember when they first brought Katana in Batman and the Outsiders back in the early '80s, early to mid
Right.
'80s? I mean, I don't think she actually killed anybody in that whole run. I don't remember exactly, but I just remember thinking at that time, she has a sword. Why isn't she using it? So there's that. And the one thing that I kind of miss from the old run is the relationship between especially Canary and Huntress. That's not
Yeah.
in this new book.
Yeah.
Have
Well,
you?
I think we're going to get some version of that between her and Starling. I like the Starling character.
Oh yeah.
The only thing I didn't like in it was the bitches line. The Where it's 2 weeks earlier. Who does a bitch have to
Oh yeah.
to cut to get some service around here?
Hmm.
That line seemed contrived, and I mean, granted, I don't know this character, but even that didn't sound right with the rest of the language and the rest of the way she talked the rest of the thing.
Hmm.
She's saying things like "hang on, honey" and stuff like that.
Oh, you're right. Yeah.
Doesn't sound the same as somebody who would, unless she's putting on some airs,
Hmm.
unless she's putting on some act while she's in the bar. I don't know. That seemed weird. And I know that's probably silly of me to be saying that when, well, we've seen all of, 18 pages of her. But I'm already making that judgment. But that doesn't seem odd to me. But like I said, as a whole, I like the book. I'm excited for the book. I'm looking forward to the next one.
Yeah, me too. What did you think of Saiz's art?
I really like it. I like it. It's nice and clean. Everything moves across the panel.
Hmm.
I like this younger looking Black Canary.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
What,
Yeah,
what, what do you think of her new costume?
You know what? When I first saw the cover when it first was listed, I'm like, oh, what the? And I actually don't mind it. I'm still trying to decide exactly what it is. I mean, those aren't really fishnets, right?
They can't be the way they're drawn
Because
and
her
colored.
boots, because her boots have the same.
Yeah,
Her boots and the
that
inside of
mesh.
her arms have that same mesh look
Hmm.
to them. So
Hmm.
I'm assuming it's some sort of bodysuit, some sort of armor. That makes
Yeah,
perfect sense.
yeah, but
I
you
mean,
still
she's
maintain that old
right.
fishnet stocking look that she's known for. Yeah.
Right. I kind of like it. I like the fact that she's wearing some sort of body armor because we know she's, uber martial artist and whatnot, but she's going to take some knocks. If you're going to armor everybody else up in the DC universe, obviously you should be putting something on her too because she's not any more vulnerable than Batman is.
Hmm.
Yeah. So, no, I like it. I like the color scheme. I'm still trying to figure out what the things are that are on the backs of her hands, if that's just extra padding on her forearms, and it's just a funny design,
Oh yeah, I'm not sure about that. Um,
so,
but or
no,
maybe it's like sort of like Wonder Woman's bracelets. She's able to block.
right,
You know.
that's extra padding there.
Yeah.
That would make
Yeah.
a certain amount of sense. I like the action sequences in the, in this. I love the car crash there. I love, where she's leaping over the balcony, where Black Canary's leaping over the balcony and kicking one of the guys in the head when he's about ready to sniper the.
Mm-hmm.
That was cool. I don't know. I like the comic all in all.
Yeah, I did too. I kind of thought though Saiz's art was a little dark with his inks in comparison to some other things I've seen him do. But yeah, it's good. I'm glad that they have him on here. Yeah, I enjoyed it. I will stick around with this one for a little while. So I take it though, you think this is a good first issue for like new readers coming into this title? Yeah,
I think so.
Yeah,
I think so because granted, I'm assuming that your average comic book reader that doesn't know about the DC universe doesn't know who these people are.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that it gives you enough information to move forward. It gives enough of a story. We don't know everything about these people, but I don't want any of these comics to tell me everything about the person, the people in the first issue. Otherwise, there'd be no point in reading the rest of the comic.
That's true.
So no, I think so. I think it. Yeah.
Okay. So let's go to a comic where it is definitely a first issue origin story. Blue Beetle #1. Mm-hmm. This is by Tony Bedard. Writer Ig Guara is the penciler. Wow. Rai Jose is the inker. Well, I'm sure I mispronounced that first name. And Pete Patanzas is the colorist. Boy, they put a lot of names on this one that I can't pronounce very well. Blue Beetle. Wow. So as I recall, Travis, you had collected the previous incarnation of this title. Is that right?
Yes, I own all of this Blue Beetle.
Yeah. And I did not buy it, but I became a big fan of the character based on his appearances in Batman Brave and the Bold, the cartoon, and the other stuff that I've read where he pops up like in Titans and other titles where I've seen him. But I've come to like this character, Jaime Reyes. This version of Blue Beetle I really like, but this particular issue, this #1 issue. I liked the opening, the kind of like the cosmic aspect of what Blue Beetle is. You get the reintroduction of the Green Lanterns as their kind of mortal enemies, which they played on in, I believe it was Brightest Day as well.
Right.
Right. But then we get Jaime's origin story, and that honestly kind of bored me. And I don't know if it's because of the stuff that's actually here or if it's just it reads like a typical origin story where some kid who he's kind of like an outcast to a certain degree or he's picked on or whatever, that kind of a character. And then he, through no means of his own other than he was in the wrong place at the right time, he ends up getting the Scarab and becomes Blue Beetle.
Right.
And I read that and like this I've read this so many times before in various comics over the years, and I'm not sure if it's that or if it's actually something specific that's in this story that just kind of makes me go eh.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Here's my thing with this. This issue took probably 20-some issues worth of comic books and smashed them all into one comic. This basically covers many storylines across the last version of this book.
Oh, okay.
At the very, towards the end here, you get what's her name's aunt. You find out that obviously she's got some criminal connection. Mm-hmm. Heck, you don't find that out in the last version. You find that out like 6 or 7 issues in. They changed some of the characters, some of his friends in this a little bit. But yeah, it's like they did. They basically took. I mean, they're not to say that this is what they stretched this exact story out over 20-some issues, but this was scattered amongst those 20-some issues, and they just rammed it all into one book.
Uh-huh.
And I don't think they give you enough here to care about. And I really and I very quickly got invested in the last version of it, the character, because he's such a cool character.
Mm-hmm.
And they start to give you a little bit of it here, but you know, not enough. Not enough to show at this point that he's actually a really good kid, and that he really wants to make the right choices, and that he's kind of a Spider-Man of the DC universe as far as when pressure gets to him, he's kind of a smart ass. Almost none of that's here. I mean, the only thing that's here that shows that to some degree is, when the bad guys are going after his friend, he grabs the backpack, which seems to be of some value to these guys, and runs off with it to try and keep him from hurting his friend.
Yeah.
But yeah, otherwise, there's some cool villains they put in here. I like the Hispanic villains that are in here. The guy that looks like somebody from the Day of the Dead and whatnot, and
Oh,
I don't know. I didn't hate the comic, but yeah, it was kind of. You're right. I mean, we've seen it a million times.
And the writing to me it didn't bring up just the overall feeling about the comic. No, that's the wrong way to put it. It didn't bring up the level of the situation that was presented such that I cared more about it.
Right.
Like you were saying earlier.
Right.
And I think that's a problem with Tony Bedard. From my perspective, his writing.
Oh.
I just don't think he's a very strong writer.
Now, see, I like him because I loved his Rebels. I love that comic. He finished out the first volume of Birds of Prey, and he was going to town on that. There were some great stories there at the end of that. I haven't read any of his Green Lantern stuff, right? Because Green Lantern's the other thing that he writes a bunch of. Isn't that right?
I believe he did Green Lantern Corps, yeah.
Yeah.
Which tells you why I didn't pick that up.
Right. Right.
That's not fair.
I think that there's hope for this comic,
mm-hmm.
even with the people that are on it. I just don't think that this was a real strong first issue for me, and obviously it sounds like for you. It's not new. I think it's new reader friendly.
Yes.
But it's not a real. If you read a lot of comics, this feels done before.
Yeah, it's your typical origin story.
Right. Right. So for me, I guess I'm looking forward to the next issue because I think we'll now be beyond that. Mm-hmm. They got it out of the way.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so now I hope we're going to get into some real story and whatnot. Some of the interviews and stuff that I've read with Tony Bedard, it sounds like he gets what most of us like about this version of Blue Beetle. So I think we're going to see that. I just think that for whatever reason they chose with this comic to hurry up and get how it happened out of the way so they can move on with telling a real story as
mm-hmm.
opposed to regurgitating how the hero becomes the hero.
Yeah. Yeah.
I hope.
Well, I'm definitely going to, I pre-ordered up to issue 3. I just now have to decide if I'm going to get issue 4 and beyond.
Yeah.
But based on this, I'm not all that keen on the comic, but we'll see. I'm hoping it improves too.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. Next on the list is Captain Atom. This is one you did not read?
I did not read.
Okay. I did. Because I had heard from someone that it was pretty good, surprisingly pretty good. So I picked it up as one of my. I go to the comic shop and pay almost full price for it because I wanted to read it and see for myself. Anyway, Captain Atom by J.T. Kroll, the writer. Freddie Williams II is the artist, and Jose Villarrubia is the colorist. Okay. You did not miss anything, Travis. This, I read it and quickly forgot about it.
Yeah.
As I tweeted, right after I first read it, I said I just got done reading Captain Atom. because they're basically turning Captain Atom so that here's this guy who has nuclear forces within him, and he blasts everybody, and
Right.
he could go nuclear.
Right.
Um, he can now transmute elements, and
Really?
he can see subatomic levels, and I saw a solicitation where he's going to shrink down to a small size to
Yes.
enter the brain of
Yes.
somebody. So now he's
Yeah. I
the
wonder what
Atom.
the hell was that.
Yeah,
Mm.
so he's the Atom, he's Firestorm, he's what Captain Atom used to be, and who the hell else
Cool.
knows what else. And I just don't find that interesting. I like the superheroes to be distinctive. I don't want them sharing each other's powers.
Right.
Um, and the art, we love Freddie Williams III.
I don't.
He's the one that does
Oh, the
Batman.
third.
Yeah,
Third. Sorry.
but Freddie Williams II, I've not been a huge fan of Second's work. And
No.
this is indicative of that. The stuff where Captain Atom is actually in it seems to be okay. The other panels where he's not really in the panel, um, I, I do not like it. Do not like. I don't care for the inking the guy does. It just looks sloppy or rushed. I'm not sure. Like I said, the Captain Atom stuff looks pretty good, but then again, he's this blue guy, bluish white guy. So there's not a lot of distinction in there as far as how his features look and whatnot.
Uh-huh.
And then the last thing I'll say about this, and besides, don't bother with this title, is is that he kind of looks like Dr.
Manhattan.
Manhattan, which
Yeah.
really bugs me because Dr. Manhattan is an homage to Captain Atom.
Uh-huh.
So they're making him look like an homage to himself, and that really bugs me for some reason.
uh, I read some things where they were, some websites had some, virgin readers reading comics that literally had not read any comics at all, and they gave them that comic to read,
Hmm.
and they kept wanting to know why, Dr. Manhattan was doing the stuff that he was doing and whatnot. I mean, they recognized that from the movie, from the movie Watchmen and whatnot, but couldn't figure out what was going. And they kept referring to him as that when they were talking about the comic afterwards and whatnot.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
I'm not a big fan of the artist. Seems like a nice guy and whatnot, but I just don't care for his art.
No.
I suffered through JSA All Stars, which he was on, because I liked those characters that were there. I didn't have enough interest in this character to suffer through that again, so I just didn't even bother. I knew right away I was not going to get this title.
Yeah, yeah.
And it didn't even pique my curiosity, because some of these books I picked up that they weren't on my pull list, that wasn't getting in advance, but I've gone and picked them up off the counter anyway, and that's one that still had no interest to go pick up.
Mm-hmm. Now, having said all that, I said don't bother with it, but I think it's a new reader-friendly title in that you get introduced to this character without getting a lot of backstory, his origin story, but you get thrown into the story, you get to see what he can do, you get to see the conflict that's going on with him and his powers. They explain it enough without being, I didn't think, being didactic. So I thought it was a fairly successful first issue for a new reader. I just didn't think it was interesting.
It's not your thing.
Yeah. Wow. Okay, let's go to. I can't wait to talk about this one. Go ahead, Travis.
Oh, next up is Catwoman by Judd Wittick and Philip March. I don't want to see here. I don't know if anybody else who does the coloring and whatnot on it, or if it's all him.
No, there's a colorist.
Tomei Mori.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
His colors. Sure. I don't know. Yeah, Catwoman. I don't like the cover.
Really?
I understand what the cover is trying to project to us. I don't know. No, I didn't like the cover. Seeing the cover made me wonder. This is not on my pull list. I picked this up off, paid full price for it, and because all the stink on the internet that started happening about it, and I figured by the time it came around to it coming out, I decided I was going to get the first issue anyway, even before the stink started to happen. But once the stink started to happen, then I really had to pick it up just to see. I had to look at the train wreck too, supposedly. Mm-hmm. But one of the reasons I wasn't getting it was because I didn't care for the cover necessarily, and I wasn't getting a whole lot of information out of any of the interviews I was seeing beforehand with Jed Wettig, other than it was going to be sexy,
Hmm.
which I don't have an issue with sexy. I'll tell you right now, I don't have a problem with sexy. Sexy works for me, um, but I don't want that to be the only thing that's there. So, you know what? I actually kind of like this comic. Um, and I say that with a because I don't want people to come after me for or think that I'm a cretin because I like this comic.
Hmm.
But
Well, you're just
there
a
are
typical
some,
male, Travis.
yeah, that's it. That's it. I mean, okay, so the opening stuff and whatnot, the big issue is of course she's not dressed to start out with and
Hmm.
gets dressed. She's going on, which of course I don't know how. I mean, you don't. Oh, you're not always in costume. Even the male heroes aren't always in costume. They sometimes have to get dressed too. Granted, they could have picked a different focal point than her red brassiere to
For all 4 panels of
for,
the first page, yeah.
yeah, but I still liked it. But I don't like it necessarily from. I mean, to tell you the truth, the first thing I was looking at all the other stuff that's going on around it. Maybe I'm weird. I wasn't paying that much attention to that part of her body. I mean, I'm as she's running down a list of things that she needs to grab, the hangers that are flying everywhere, the socks that are flying around, you're picking up her mittens and whatnot, and the cats. I love the cats. Her picking up this whole big basket of cats and whatnot. That
Hmm.
cracked me up. Um,
Her babies.
Right. And the guys coming in, shooting the place up and attacking it. I guess that's that second page, the last thing. I guess you could complain that, oh, look, it's an ass shot. I was spending my time looking at the hilarious box full of cats. I thought that was funny. And her flipping out of her flipping out of the window as the guys are still shooting at her and the cats are flying everywhere. I don't have a problem with the fact that she hasn't gotten her clothes on all the way.
Hmm.
How is she supposed to when these guys are coming after her?
Hmm.
Um, and she does gracefully put the entire thing on, and she zips it up all the way because, of course, she's in combat. I mean, if they were truly going for, you know, it all about the jigglies, they would have kept her partway unzipped through it, right?
Yes, I would
I'm
agree
just
with that.
saying. So we get past what some people consider 4 pages of just oh my god, horrid profanity, oh horrible, horrible, and then she's meeting her what is she? Her fixer, her fence, whatever. Fence
Fence,
is
yeah.
what they call it here. I love that part.
Hmm.
Her interaction with the fence. I thought that was really. I don't know. I thought that was really cool and really interesting. And
It shows some good character moments between
right,
these two people.
I thought so.
And
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 the fence
I
isn't
thought defined Selena fairly well for a new reader.
right. And the fence isn't some hottie toddy. I didn't think. You know. Um. Of course, the next situation they have her in, she's at basically a Russian horror house, which I don't know. It's I didn't have a problem with that either, I guess, because it fits the scene. It fit what she was doing. It made sense for her to be there. She wasn't just there for the hell of it and whatnot.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, and then she beats the hell out of a guy. The one part that was somewhat confusing was the backflash, and we're supposed to assume that's a backflash from
Hmm.
because they changed the color of it.
Yeah.
They made it that sepia tone, and
Hmm.
obviously this guy did something really horrible to her and or her friends, you know. And so obviously you don't screw Celine, and because she remembers it all, and well, obviously she'll screw you up
Yeah.
at some point if she catches you, if
Yeah.
she seriously jacks that guy up, you know. So
Yeah. It shows her being a badass
right,
when she has to be or when she
which
feels
I
she
think
needs
is
to be.
which I think is cool too. I don't know, and then she gets her costume back on and gracefully kicks everybody's ass and looks cool doing it as she leaves the place.
Okay.
And then there's the end of the book
Yeah. Well,
where she runs into the bat.
yeah. Well, the bat runs into her.
Yeah, well, yeah, he seeks her out because obviously she's been having some sort of problem.
Wait, are we talking
Um,
code now?
Talking code?
Yeah. Never mind.
Yeah. Um, but I I have to admit, when I read the last part of it and whatnot, that was somewhat uncomfortable for me.
Hmm.
I don't think there's anything wrong with it though. Um, it certainly puts their relationship in a really interesting way, does it not?
Oh yeah.
I mean, that was really interesting. The internet was all, pissed. Well, I shouldn't say the internet. Some segments of the internet were all pissed off by this thing because, oh my gosh, that's all slutty there at the end and whatnot. I don't know. I guess it depends on. She looks like she's taking advantage of him. It's not like that's the part I don't understand. If and of course I'm a dumb male, so what do I know? Um, she's obviously in control of the situation. She's getting what she wants out of it.
Hmm.
I don't know. Yeah. But actually, like I said, except for a few parts that it was kind of like, okay, they probably didn't really need to have that the way it was at the beginning. I didn't have a problem um, with the end of the book, with her being all hotty-toddy, because obviously she's being hotty-totty there for a reason. I mean, it makes sense for that part. Maybe less so in the beginning of the book with the concentration on her chest.
Hmm.
And then this part just, I guess, made me uncomfortable because I wasn't expecting it. It it makes the story interesting, though. I'm gonna pick up the next issue. So I don't know. Like I said, maybe I'm just a male, and so what do I know?
Okay.
So it's sold to me, even though I'm old enough to be outside of the demographic it was supposed to sell to.
Yeah. Well, now, okay, so I agree with pretty much everything you've said. Um, as far as the sexuality of it, I just think they could have told the story that they wanted to tell without being so over the top with it. However, again, like you, I don't really have a problem with it in the context that we're shown
Hmm.
until the very end. Um, that last page also bugged me, but it bugged me for a couple different reasons. And one is a good reason from a storytelling standpoint, from a character standpoint, and then the other reason is, it's just I really didn't need to see. We didn't need to see that, I guess. Something, some of the best visual storytelling in TV, movies, and comics is stuff that we are not shown directly. Uh, we I think we got enough of where they were going with that we did not need to see that last splash page
Hmm.
with her straddling Batman. And then my first reaction was, why would Batman allow her to do this? But then we get to the other part of where I was okay with it, in that these people are screwed up.
Right.
Emotionally,
Right.
mentally, they're just screwed up people, and this is their way of dealing with that in some fashion.
Hmm.
And obviously Batman and Selina have this relationship. It's a weird fetish kind of relationship.
Right.
So I kind of see that as this is a natural progression for them. Um, but it still bugs me that Batman, we always think of Batman as like the uber control freak, but
Uh-huh.
but at the same time,
He
meaning
has
that
needs.
he would not allow himself to not have control over a situation. But at the same time, I can totally see a guy like that giving in to someone like Selena in this way.
Right.
It makes sense to me.
He needs to let go.
Yeah. And this
And
is
and this is where he decides he's going to do it at.
that's right. So
Yeah.
yeah. So it makes sense to me. Again, I don't think that they needed to show so much TNA in
Uh-huh.
this, but in certain aspects it works. I just didn't need to see all of it. Um,
Okay, so do you think the TNA insulted the character of Catwoman? Do you think it insults her?
Well, see now, that's the thing. I never read a lot of Catwoman.
Uh-huh.
Previous series. Mostly what I've seen of Catwoman is just her interacting with Batman in his books, and of
Right.
course they don't have that kind of stuff in those books.
Sure.
Um, so I don't know. I don't know how to answer that. This is a new Catwoman. This is a new take on the character. So that, this is how she's supposed to be, maybe. And even if you look at to set that aside for a moment, the new look at the character, there's precedent for her to have a more how do I want to say this? She has a background in yeah, well in gosh, Batman Year One. She was reimagined as a high-priced call girl, if I remember correctly.
Right.
You know, she
Right.
she was a prostitute.
Hmm.
Um, so that, I guess, given that and what we're shown here, it kind of makes sense to me that they're showing her this way, and the fact that she uses her sexuality to get
Oh,
things that
she
she
does.
wants. I, we
I mean,
all.
I don't see how you can deny that that isn't part of her character.
Hmm.
That that being that way. Now the debate up on whether or not they should have shown as much as they shown. I can see it both ways. I can see from I didn't need that, but I can also see from the company's standpoint, trying to put out a different product because they don't have products like this. I mean, this is definitely a different product. 5 years ago we wouldn't have seen this. DC wouldn't have put this out.
Oh yeah.
There's no way. But they're trying to put out a different product, and they're trying. They have no intention of selling every comic to every person. I mean, we're some of the weirdos that are buying most every single one of them, but they have no intentions of selling every comic to every person.
Hmm.
And there's a segment of the population that this is going to appeal to, and it's not going to just be a bunch of horny guys that this is going to appeal to. It's going to appeal to some other people. It's just like it's like why True Blood works as a TV show as well as it does. It doesn't need all of that sexuality that's in there, but it does appeal to a certain segment of the population. And I think this is the type of book that's going to appeal to that same sort of population, not necessarily the exact same fans, but that sort of population.
Hmm. Hmm.
So I guess I don't have a problem with it now. I ended up letting my 13-year-old read it. I wonder now if I should have. I hummed and hawed back and forth on one that I wanted to.
I was going to ask you about this.
Just because, and I don't have a problem with with the amount of sexuality in itself that's in there. So much. I cringe just as much as my kids reading stuff that's horrifically violent as I do if it gets too sexually over the top. The type of relationship those two characters have at the end there, that's the part that made me uncomfortable with them reading because, he's 13 and I hope to think that his understanding of people's sexual relationships are a little more simpler than what theirs is, because theirs is obviously really complicated. Do you know what I mean? And so that's the part that I went back and forth on, and you read it, and I still go, maybe I shouldn't have had him read that. Well, at some point we're gonna talk about some other comics that came out that have a bunch of sexual stuff in it and whatnot too, which I don't know, felt completely different than what this did.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
that part felt uncomfortable for that, just because of the fact that the relationship is it's screwed up.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, I wanted to ask you about that if you let your 13-year-old read that, because this is rated teen plus. So
right. What does that mean?
It means appropriate for readers age 16 and older, may contain moderate violence, mild profanity, graphic imagery, and/or suggestive themes.
So you have the actual
yes
thing there. That's what it is.
Because
I don't know.
Yeah.
I read it and went, wow. I mean, one of my video blogs, I talk about this. I mean, what's teen plus? Where's the break between teen plus and mature? Mature, I'm going to see, every nipple, and they're going to be dropping f-bombs. That's the difference between that and teen plus. I'm just curious because because I did open up and went, whoa, yeah. So I don't know. Moving forward, he may not read any more of them, depending on where the comic goes. Because, like I said, I'm still now, and when I look back over it again, I wonder maybe I shouldn't have had him read that. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Out of all of the DC books and whatnot, it certainly had the most sexual tension in it for me.
Well, sexual. Would you say sexual content as well?
No, tension. Well, content. I don't know. Did you read Red Hood?
Yes, and I thought that was
there's a couple shots in there that don't leave a whole lot to the imagination either.
Sure, but I still think Catwoman is more sexually overt than that was.
Yeah, and then the strippers in Voodoo.
Oh yeah, there's that too.
But yeah, so yes, this was.
But Voodoo that's within context. It's in a stripper club. So that makes sense.
This isn't in context?
No,
So now you're saying the sexuality is not in context in this book?
no, 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 no. I'm not saying
Okay.
that. I'm just saying that with voodoo, it makes perfect sense that women are
Right. Right.
scantily or not at all
Yes,
dressed.
this was definitely the probably had the most sexual content in it as far as yeah,
Yeah,
as far as being intense stuff going on it. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Especially those last few pages with Batman. It's like, wow, for me. I felt like that was perhaps pushing the Teen Plus rating. But then again, age 16 and older, maybe not. It's just maybe we're just not used to seeing that kind of stuff in a DC comic, and two, one that's not stamped for mature readers. Um,
But they didn't show us anything.
no, no, but there you go. We come back to that idea of what they don't show says
Right.
a lot, and I mean they're close to that as it is, but the suggestions of this weird psychosexual relationship between those two,
Hmm.
man, that's something. I like the idea of it. I hope that they explore that relationship more, but I don't need to see them having sex to do that.
Okay. I'm not saying that I do either. But I don't have the issue with it that some people
Yeah,
seem to have with
yeah.
it either.
Well,
I mean, I don't agree. It's definitely way out there than what DC has done in the past. But I think that's part of the point of the relaunch, wasn't it, to change the way they were doing some stuff.
yes, yeah,
And then this book isn't for everybody.
right. And
But like I said,
and
I think
none
there's a
of them will
segment of the
be.
population that there are people that it will sell to.
Yeah, definitely. So we spent a lot of time talking about the sexuality of the comic. What did you think of it as as a new reader, a friendly issue, and what do you think of the art?
I I like this artist. I've
Hmm.
liked this artist for a long time. I know there's some people who don't because, of course, I mean, everybody's tarred it up and whatnot to some degree, you
Hmm.
know. But I still like it. I like his movement through the book. You know, sometimes his faces aren't 100% realistic, but they get across, I think, really well what the person's thinking and whatnot.
Hmm.
I love um, Celine's perturbed look on her face when her place blows up. That just cracks me up. And like I said, I love the cat there too. That just cracks me up too. The cat that's sitting on my shoulder. um, yeah. I mean, like some of the stuff is sometimes oddly shaped to some degree, but no, I like the art. I mean,
Yeah.
the art for me, that wasn't a no sell. That was to some degree was a sell. I've liked the Gotham City Sirens work that he's done. I like the covers that he's done for Gotham City Sirens and whatnot. So I liked it. I didn't have an issue with it.
Yeah, I was not that familiar with this artist. In fact, I couldn't tell you where I've seen this artist's work
Uh-huh.
before. And I read this, I'm like, wow, I really need to pay more attention because I really like Gillen March's work.
Yeah. He's got a
And
style.
yeah, yeah, and in particular, what really blew me away in this book was the color art. Um, who do we say did the art? Tumu Mori.
Yeah.
The scene in the rush with the Russians,
Hmm.
the way that they went really, really kind of monochrome, except for the hair color and
Right.
the lips and whatnot, that really stood out. And then in the middle of that, you get that flashback with the sepia tones
Hmm.
and the dark inks and stuff. That really worked well in terms of conveying the kind of mood and movement of the story
Right.
uh, that it shows. It's just
Yeah.
great art. I think
Yeah. And
this
I'm
is
not
really
sure. I'm
distinct.
not sure if this colorist follows him around, but the way it looks color wise and whatnot is indicative of his art.
Okay.
That's why when I was first reading this, I wasn't sure if there was a colorist along with it because they always seem to have those kind of green and yellow off tones and stuff
Hmm.
that seem to be in a lot of the panels and stuff.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Seems to be pretty standard.
And that one panel where Selena goes into the men's room, you get that cheesecake
Right.
pose.
Right.
The whole cheesecake aspect aside, just what I really liked about that was the coloring. The skin tone variations there with the bright
Hmm.
lights on top of her. I just think it's really good art.
Hmm. Hmm.
So yeah. Um, Well, that's Catwoman.
Yep.
I knew we were going to talk a lot about that one.
Oh, well, sure. Just
Uh,
well, there's more issues. People seem to have more issues with it, so it gives you more to talk about. At least
yeah,
I think.
yeah. All right, let's go to the next one. DC Universe Presents #1. Let's see, this featuring Deadman. This is by Paul Jenkins doing the writing. It says by Paul Jenkins and Bernard Chang, so writer artist. I don't know why they do that in some books and others they call out specifically what they do. But anyway, with Blonde as the colorist. You know, this is a title, Travis, where I
And
was.
Ryan Sook doing the cover. Let's talk about the cover for a second too,
Oh, sure, yes,
because they're awesome looking.
yeah, boy, when I first saw that cover solicited, I was like, yeah, that's gonna be good. I love the chains on here,
Yep.
especially the chains that are coming towards us.
They get blurry, yeah, because they're
Yeah,
out of focus.
oh,
Yeah.
it just looks really good. Um,
Yeah.
what do you want? Is there anything else you want to say about the
No,
cover?
no. I just thought we needed to mention it because the
Yeah,
cover
oh
on this
yeah,
book
for
is
sure. So this was one of those titles where it's like a DC anthology title. Hell's yeah, I'll take that.
yeah, yeah,
I
same here.
was a little worried though that as we found out more about it, we were told that it was going to be a 5-part Deadman story,
Yeah,
and I'm thinking, okay, I don't mind reading a 5-part Deadman story as long as it's good, but this is supposed to be telling stories about the other characters of the DC universe. Why would you want to spend 5 issues on one character? Why not, 1 issue or 2 issues, something a little shorter, or even make it a $3.99 book and have 2 characters in 1 issue.
sure.
Just to get the characters in there, get the stories going, develop the universe more. So that's just a little complaint I had. But I thought it was a great introduction to Deadman. You get his origin story in 1 page,
Mm-hmm.
essentially. Well, okay, maybe 2, if you count the dialogue between him and oh gosh, what's the gal's name? Rama.
Right. Mm-hmm.
You get that. And there's something new added with that whole the balance thing.
Yeah, and the bricks.
Yeah, the bricks, the living
Mm-hmm.
bricks, and all that. That's kind of a neat add-on to that.
Mm-hmm.
I really liked the bits where we focus on the human characters and you
Yeah.
find out their stuff. I had read some complaints online about there's a scene later in the book after, I think it's in the last third. Yeah, where it's just a bunch of panels and you get 1 character per panel. And I'd read some complaints online about that, about how they just didn't care about any of these characters. But every one of those I read, I wanted to read that story.
Yeah, same here.
There was just enough with that with the dialogue box at the top and the image that were shown that made me go, wow, I want to see every one of these stories.
Right.
And of course we can't, they're not going to do that, but just the idea that he's so involved now in these lives and how he affects them, or at least the implication is how he affects them. I was just very intrigued with it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I thought it was a
Yeah.
pretty good first issue as far as this title goes. But again,
Yeah.
I worry about the whole 4 more months of Deadman in a supposedly anthology title.
Yeah, I'm curious to see where it's going to go too. I really like this. I really like this issue. I like the writing style. I agree with you. The panels of each of those characters made me go, ooh, wow, and the fact that that he feels like he's failed them all and whatnot. The whole build up to the end of this issue, I thought was really good. I was feeling this guy. I was feeling Deadman. How he might be going through the motions of all these people and what does it all really mean, and he's not really getting some answers, and now he's out to seek those answers.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of what I felt like here at the end, where he threatens to off the next person that he's in to get the attention of. Now, I'm not sure what this book, that last panel where he's basically gotten the attention of Rama. If this is going to be 4 more issues of him dealing with her,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if this is going to be a good story or
Yeah,
not.
yeah.
I
And
I think all the people's lives that he affects and how they affect him is the interesting part of this story for me. So I'm
yes.
curious to see where it goes. And I can definitely understand what you're talking about. If it's going to be that many issues of Dead Man, it's a Dead Man title, you know. Um, but at the same time, I like Dead Man.
Yeah.
At least I have in the past. I mean, I didn't read him through the Brightest Day stuff and whatnot, but I've always liked Dead Man in the past. I probably own most of the mini series and long series that have been put out of the character. So I don't have a problem with there being that many issues of it if it's going to be a good book.
Hmm.
But you're right. If you're not a Dead Man fan, you're not going to be picking this title up for 6 months.
Yeah.
So,
Hmm.
from that perspective, you're right. Is that, but I'm glad it's not Brave and the Bold though either. Because sometimes I think I like one and done sometimes, but sometimes I feel like you could tell a better story if you had a little more time to tell it.
Hmm.
And back on Brave and the Bold, which this is kind of what this is like to some degree. Back on Brave and the Bold, and that was a team up of two people. They always tried to get it done one and done, and sometimes there was just too much to cram in, or you just didn't see enough to develop the characters. And if that's what this is going to be about, is developing the characters, maybe the reason they're doing 5 months of this is because they don't know what characters are going to be in the DC universe yet. They haven't made a decision on that. So,
Oh, wow. I would bet money that they've planned it out for at least a year, if not a year and a half for this
so
title.
you think they already know who the next person is going to
Oh
be
yeah,
on?
I bet you the artist is already working on issue 7.
Well, it could be.
Like I know all this stuff. Um, oh, what was I? I was going to ask you a question. Oh, it's gone. I can't. Never mind. Anything else you want to say about DC Universe Presents?
Nope, I think it was an interesting comic. I think, like I said, the cover I think would draw a lot of people in. It gives you enough there to be interested in the guy and what he's got going on in his life and whatnot. So I
Hmm.
think that it works. It works as a number one, telling the beginning of a story about a character that you might not know. And
Hmm.
those of us who know the character, they didn't spend so much time on the stuff we already know to bore us before it got on to some other interesting stuff. So
Yeah.
yeah, I liked it.
Okay.
But I'm a sucker like you for this type of comic and anthology comics. I dig those. So
All right. Next on the list is a title that neither of us read, Green Lantern Corps #1. And anybody who's listened to the podcast knows that you just don't like Green Lantern in general.
yep.
And I had never really cared for the core comic that came before this. So, I mean, I read a few issues here and there, but, I just didn't care for it. I mean, it was okay. There wasn't nothing wrong with it, but it just didn't really excite me and look like more of the same. So I just didn't bother picking it up. So
So
there,
the core comic, the Green Lantern Corps, it's about just all the other lanterns in general,
in general,
as
but
opposed
the
as
focus is on the two other Earth Green Lanterns, Guy Gardner and John Stewart.
well, that might almost make it worth it. It's not Hal Jordan. At any rate,
Okay, yeah. Well, yeah, there's absolutely nothing wrong with those two characters, and actually, over the years, I've come to really like
I
Guy
like
Gardner.
Stewart. Yeah.
Stewart, to a certain degree, I like him, but Guy Gardner's actually developed into an interesting character. Although I don't know what they've done with him, now that we're only 5 years into the DC universe as
Right.
we know it. So maybe they've regressed him some. I hope not, because I could not stand that old Justice League International version of him.
Right. The meathead. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So anyway, so there's that. We'll
Yeah.
move on to the next one,
Yeah.
Legion of Superheroes. You did not read this one though, did you?
Nope.
Okay,
Nope.
so Legion of Superheroes by Paul Levitz, as he's been doing for the last almost 2 years, I think. Francis Portela is the artist. Javier Mena is the colorist. I have not been, well, I'm a huge Legion of Superheroes fan. I've been a Legion of Superheroes fan longer than I've been a fan of pretty much most any other comic book character. So I love my Legion. And then when it was announced that Paul Levitz was coming back to do the last volume of Legion of Superheroes, I was really excited. You get this guy who did a great 80s run on the title, coming back, and then I was somewhat disappointed because it just didn't. He wasn't writing. Not that, I'm going to say this now, but I understand, you have to have different styles or write to the audience of now as opposed to 20 years ago or 30 years ago now. But it wasn't the style that I was used to and liked. The characters didn't come across as characters. It was mostly plot over character development, and I didn't care for it. Um, his work on adventure comics with these new characters, the trainees, the academy trainees, that was okay, but it was just kind of more of the same. And I mention that only because we get two of those characters in this new Legion of Superheroes volume: Dragon Wing, Chemical Kid. Yes, Chemical Kid. But so there's that. This issue, not new reader friendly, because if you open this up and start reading it, you just see a bunch of characters in costumes. You're told who they are because they do that in the Legion comics. They tell you the name, what their alias is, or what their real name is, and then what their powers are. So you get that information, but you don't know. They don't really interact with each other, so you don't get a sense of their relationship. You get a little bit of their character in as much as what they say, but there's not. If you don't know what the Legion of Superheroes is going into this and kind of where they've come from, because they do mention some things that happened in the previous volume, like the death of Earthman, you'll be lost, or you'll just kind of accept it and just move on with this kind of nagging feeling in the back of your brain. It's like, well, there's something going on here, but I guess I'll just keep reading and maybe it'll be explained. So a lot of negativity, it sounds like, for me, but I have to say, compared to the last volume that I read, I actually didn't mind this story so much. There was just enough of character development or showing character that overran my doubts about this comic. The art, Francis Portello doing the art, I think he could benefit from someone else inking his work. But having said that, because his inks are really heavy-handed in some places and others it's not, so it looks inconsistent. But it looks really good. Portello does pretty good art, I have to say. And of course, this being the Legion with all sorts of different colored aliens and costumes and stuff, the colorist did a really good job keeping all that straight and makes it look pretty good. I don't know how much further I'm going to keep going with this. I just about dropped the last volume of this title, and then it was announced that they were going to relaunch, so I kept going on until the end of it. But we'll see. It's really sad. Like I said before, I really love Paul Levitz's Legion of Superheroes, and I'm just not feeling it here. So maybe they need to get a new person writing it. But that's the Legion. Why don't you read Legion?
What?
Why don't you read Legion?
I've tried. My son wanted to pick it up when the last version of it came out and whatnot. We picked it up for 5 or 6 issues and then dropped it for the ever so much better Batgirl.
That's true.
Which was a good call on his part. So
you owe him that, huh? That decision?
Partially. We hummed and hawed together about whether or not that's what we should pick up. He knew he was done. We knew we were done with the Legion because it just wasn't anything about it that was interesting anymore. And that was one of our choices, and that's the one we went with, which, like I said, was a good choice. Can't even remember what the other choices are anymore. But I would like to be a fan of the Legion. I like the idea of the Legion. I like the idea of the characters that are in the Legion. I just never get to see those things. See, I don't have the 30-year back history that you do of when supposedly the Legion was good. And I've not enjoyed the last couple versions of the Legion that have come out. I just haven't. They haven't. I don't know. There's a lot going on and nothing happens.
Yeah,
it feels like.
That's a excellent way to put that.
And nothing about most of those characters want me to invest in them. The closest I can come to investing in them is that one's got kind of cool powers or a cool way of using them, and that's the most I can get invested in them.
Mm-hmm.
I love team books, so that that comic's got that going all over it, or should,
It should.
but it doesn't. And
Hmm.
so I knew that there was no reason I was going to pick up this book because it was basically different artists, but basically the same person writing it, which means it was going to basically be the same sort of thing.
Hmm.
'Cause I can't imagine them giving a writer the same book again and go, yeah, right, keep writing this book, but completely change the way you're writing it, you know, and losing a few characters, the Legion lost, and putting a few characters in. I just knew wasn't going to make any difference to me at all. So
Hmm.
there we are. If it were to have dramatically changed, somebody writing it that I might have been interested in, and it seemed to be doing something completely different with it, I probably would have picked up number one. But I didn't see where that was going to be the case. So
Yeah. Yeah.
there we are.
Well, like much of Batman and Green Lantern, when they first announced the relaunch, where they said that Batman and Green Lantern, pretty much everything that they've
Staying the
been
same.
doing, yeah, it's going to pretty much stay the same. Legion 2, it was untouched by the relaunch. There's no difference there in what came before and what we're presented with now.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, hey, Travis, do you mind if I take point on the next one?
No, go ahead.
Because it's Nightwing #1, and you know how much I love Dick Grayson.
Yep.
All right, Nightwing #1 by Kyle Higgins, the writer. Eddie Barrows is the penciler. Inker J.P. Mayer. Colors by Rod Race, or is it Hayes? I don't know if he's South American or not. Anyway,
Yeah, I don't know.
so here we go. Nightwing is back. And with the new costume, which I like, actually, I didn't care for the red in it. I'm used to the blue, but I was like, I can live with a color change. It's no big deal. Plus,
Sure.
it's reminiscent of Batman Beyond, that costume.
Right.
Um, and that cover image that they showed, that just looks pretty cool.
Yeah, it
Um,
does.
you got Nightwing coming back. He's in Gotham City now. Whereas before, I think he was stationed in New York in the old version. You got the story going on with him, with the Haley Circus being in town, so he's got to deal with his past, and a lot of this story focuses on him dealing with his past and what he's doing with his future and all that kind of stuff. And he compares himself a lot to Bruce in this, which I kind of wish they wouldn't do that, but I also understand why they would do it in this relaunch. They got to get that relationship in there somehow. Without Bruce actually being in this comic. And then you get this villain here who's after Dick Grayson. And I wonder if this has something to do with what we were shown at the end of Batman #1. Because this guy after Dick Grayson that fights Nightwing says something about Grayson isn't innocent. Oh, yeah. Dick Grayson is the fiercest killer in all of Gotham, and he doesn't even know it. Like, what the hell is that about?
Yeah.
So that really intrigues the heck out of me.
And I wonder if it ties into the Batman
Yeah, exactly.
because those two writers are buddies. They wrote, well, they helped plot together the oh no, I'm drawing a blank on that miniseries that just finished up right before the relaunch. The
Oh, the Gates of Gotham?
yes, the two of them wrote that.
Mm-hmm.
Came up with the idea together. So I know they chat with each other. So I wondered if there's some sort of tie in there.
Yeah.
But obviously the guy that's attacking him though isn't a good guy.
Oh, no, he kills a couple cops.
Right.
He certainly didn't need to do that.
Right. So I mean, if this guy was some sort of a vigilante, going after Dick Grayson because Dick Grayson is some horrid person, that's a little more than a little overkill. So
Yeah. I wish they had. I mean, they could have been Eddie Barrows could have made that character a little more subtle, but I guess he's got to be the bad guy, so he's got to be a really bad guy, and so Dick now has to take him out, like he wouldn't do that anyway. So I thought this was a pretty good first issue. I mean, if he tells the story, and the very first page, he gives the background of who Dick is, and although I think that third box in the third overlay panel where he talks about filling in as Batman. That might be a little confusing to people. If you're
Yeah.
new to this, you come into this and go, so I'm reading Nightwing, but he used to be Batman. I thought Bruce Wayne was Batman.
Right.
But he said the next page you go, I'm finally me again. I'm Dick Grayson, Nightwing.
Hmm.
So there's a few rough spots here as far as being new reader friendly, but you get the idea. If you know who Dick Grayson is, which I think just like we talked about with Batman #1, you know who Dick Grayson is. Dick Grayson was Robin, or you
Right.
think he is Robin. So now you come here and you read this and you're expecting Dick Grayson to be Robin, but he's quite clearly not Robin, and he says who he is. He's
Right.
now Nightwing. So I
And and
it's
obviously an adult.
what's that?
And obviously an adult. I mean, that's the other thing is too. If you're going with the old, Batman and Robin being Bruce Wayne and Dick Grayson, you pick this up. You may have known that Dick Grayson was Robin, but obviously he's an adult now, so
Yeah.
therefore he's moved
Okay.
beyond Robin.
I'm glad you mentioned this because remember when we first started talking about Batman.
Oh yeah.
So you got Greg Capullo uh, drawing Dick Grayson in that one panel, along with
Hmm.
Bruce, Tim, and Damian. And if you look at that, quite clearly, Capullo's version of Dick Grayson is he's in his late teens. He does he's not quite as tall as Bruce, so he's still, I guess
He doesn't have his man body on yet. Yes.
yeah. Oh,
Right.
okay. Great way to put it. And then you open up Nightwing, and look what he has. Look the way he looks. He's a big guy. He's tall. He looks older than I'm guessing Capullo's drawing Dick Grayson like he's 17, 18ish. But here he looks quite clearly in his I would say early 20s. I
Hmm.
know that's you could different people see different things, but he does not look like the younger version of himself that is shown in Batman. And considering that, we have this whole 5-year timeline between the start of the superheroes and where we're at, and I was figuring this out in my head last night. Uh, it seems to me that Dick Grayson has to be 18ish for this to work. And then that
Really?
troubles me too. Uh,
Yeah. No. But yeah.
It troubles me too because he says for almost a year he'd filled in as Batman. So in that 5-year timeline, Dick Grayson started out as Robin, um, and spent a certain amount of time as Robin, and then at some point came Jason Todd, and then came uh, Tim Drake, and then came Damian. So let's say that Damian showed up 2 years ago because he was assuming that some of what we know that came before is still part of this new universe. Damian he showed up, and you correct me if I'm wrong because I did not read the Batman series where Damian first showed up. Did you? I thought you did, but
Yes.
okay. So Damian meets Bruce right before Bruce gets zapped by Darkseid and disappears.
Oh yeah.
So they're okay. So they're together, and he's training to become Robin, or does become Robin at that point. Is that correct?
Uh.
Or does he become Robin after Bruce disappears, and he becomes Robin with Dick
He
as Batman?
becomes. Yeah. He's hanging with Dad, but he isn't really Rob big.
Okay,
I don't. I
so
remember correctly until.
okay, so if we assume I'm trying to do DC's timeline for them, if you assume that the events of Final Crisis and Brightest Day happen, and that the run of Batman and Robin with Dick as Batman, let's say that happened within the last year, and that corresponds to what Dick says here on page 1. So for almost a year he's filled in as Batman. Now he's back as Nightwing. Okay, so there's that. That's 1 year. So then we have 4 years previous to that. So at some point, so then the previous year you had Tim Drake as Robin, and the previous year you had Jason Todd as Robin.
He went through a lot of Robins really fast.
I know. And so that leaves Bruce becoming Batman in year 1 and possibly Dick becoming Robin in year 2. So that means, and of course I'm making huge assumptions here, but you get Bruce starting out year 1, you got Dick coming in as Robin, then you got Jason, then you got Tim, and then you got the more recent events. So I assume then that he became Nightwing in year 3-ish, and then in year 5-ish, he became Batman, and now he's back as Nightwing. So that's my take on it. Um, Man, that's just
You,
a lot of stuff
you're
happening in
putting
five
way too
years.
much work into trying to figure that
I
out,
know,
man.
I know, but it really bugs me that they did that. That they that Bruce had 4 Robins
Right.
in 5 years. I think that was a huge mistake. They should have just written out a couple of them altogether, and
Yeah,
I
Tim
would have been
Drake.
happy.
Yeah, get rid of him.
Okay. Anyway, I don't know what your beef is with Tim Drake.
What's your beef with Jason Todd?
He's a non-character,
Yeah, okay.
but we'll talk about him next.
Sure.
Okay, I went on and on about Nightwing. What do you have to say about Nightwing?
Here's my one thing about it. I kind of liked it. I at one point could have cared less about Nightwing
Hmm.
or Dick Grayson. Um, Dick Grayson's time as Batman has made me like the character. Um, reading, especially reading Scott Snyder's treatment of him as Batman, really made me like Dick Grayson. Dick
Hmm.
Grayson as a person. So and because Kyle Higgins and Scott Snyder seem to be writing buddies to some degree. It kind of carried over, and I figured, well, I'll give this a shot because I've come to like the character. So I was interested in this, and of course the cover looked awesome. So I'm like, wow, that just looks cool. I have no problem with him in red. He looks like a badass in red, and that kind of
Hmm.
separates him a little farther from the rest of the Batman family, which I'm fine with too.
Oh,
Um,
and I forgot to mention this. The red ties into his time as Robin,
well, it does. It
and
does.
so that I think that's kind of cool.
So where some people are like, oh my gosh, no problem. That was our. I felt like the guy talks to himself a little too much. By the time I got done reading this, I'm like, God, does the guy ever quit talking to himself? I mean, I think all the time, but I don't have a conversation with myself. And he spends a lot of time having a conversation with himself. It seemed. I don't know. It just seemed like I don't know. I mean, there's thought bubbles or
No,
that sort of thing in
they don't
all
do
the
thought bubbles
comics. I mean,
anymore.
that's one of the charms of a comic is having this extra context that you can't put in a movie or a TV show or that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It just felt like there was almost to a point where there was, you know, enough's enough. I almost thought.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
do you think, because a lot of these titles have that inner monologue going,
uh-huh.
and I think, I don't know, is it just that, because the inner monologue is a storytelling technique that a lot of modern comics use, um,
Sure.
and maybe are they actually doing it too much, or is it that we're just reading a lot of DC Comics right now, all at once, that gives you a sort of inner monologue fatigue, I'll say.
I don't know.
Or is it
And I
this
don't know.
particular title?
Yeah, and I don't know if and that could be. I can't remember when I read this one amongst a pile of other ones that I read, and maybe this is like the last one I read for the night or whatever. And I'm like, man, but I don't mind the internal dialogue. I mean, heck, most of the comics I read have that. It's
Hmm.
just there was something about this that he felt more talky than it wasn't just that it's an inner dialogue, inner monologue. I mean, I don't know. There was something about this one, and I really do think it was this one
Hmm.
that it just after a while it felt like, wow, how much more of a conversation is this guy going to have with himself in his head?
See, now it didn't even bother me. I didn't even register the fact that he was
Of
doing
course
that.
not. You were high on Nightwing. It didn't matter to you.
Well, I think,
But no, I actually enjoyed this comic. There's some parts in here that I laughed about like nobody's business. Like when he shows back up at the circus and the clown is having a fit because
oh yeah,
wears green,
yeah,
so he looks like the freaking Joker. No
and
doubt, I'd be pissed.
he's not happy about it.
That's hilarious.
That is a
I
great,
thought that was funnier than all get out.
yeah, that was a nice touch.
So no, but no. As far as the first comic, I thought this was great. It establishes, who Dick is. It kind of lines him up and where he fits in Gotham, which I don't know why he's in Gotham. Does everybody have to be in Gotham?
I know.
Any rate, that all matches up. I'm curious about, the circus, how much that more will play into it, or if it will at all, or just helps further along that this is, this is where he's at. There's other character bits about this that I love. I love the fact that he eats his cereal right out of the box. So there's just, that a lot of that stuff I just think is, I like that,
Mm-hmm.
and that
true.
helps establish the character and whatnot. And then it ends, obviously the book ends on a cliffhanger with some action at the end of it that makes you go, wow, what the heck's happening? The guy drops that big bomb saying that, Dick Grayson's the fiercest killer. And so, yeah, like I said, I enjoyed it. It just felt to me like at one point, I know I was reading this and I went, wow, I mean, he just talks and talks and talks and talks and talks. And maybe it's the fact is that there is no actual dialogue for the first half the comic. I don't think.
I was going to mention that because there's not as much dialogue in this issue as say other comics that we've talked about in this week. Mm-hmm. So yeah, mm-hmm. it might come across as a little heavy-handed with the internal monologue. Yeah.
But no,
I'm looking forward to it too.
Sure, and it looks good. So yeah,
it definitely beats how the previous volume of Nightwing ended for me, because I collected that sucker, and I have over 150 issues of Nightwing comics, and to tell you the truth, I don't think I could tell you about any highlights of that comic. It just, I got it and I read it and there it is.
Wow.
Yeah, that says a lot about.
That's sad.
It is. So I'm really hopeful that Kyle Higgins and Eddie Barrows tell a really cool Dick Grayson Nightwing story here. So, okay, go ahead, Travis. Let's do the next one.
Okay, next is Red Hood and the Outlaws, written by Scott Lobdell and art by Kenneth Radcroft and colors by Blonde again. In fact, it's the same colors.
Yeah, that's interesting.
What do I think of this comic? Well,
yes, I'm really interested to hear what you think about this comic, Travis.
You remember how a while ago I said, "Yay, you're going to change all of my, DC comics," and they kept saying they're going to be full of action and all that stuff, and I was commenting on, "Don't make my comics dumb."
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
This one did?
This starts to feel that way. There's a lot of what I would deem as juvenile humor in it.
Mm-hmm.
It makes me go, wow, those two guys they're dicks. These aren't guys. Seriously, these aren't guys I'd want to hang out with. I always thought Roy Harper was kind of a cool guy. Here he's him and.
Well, especially Jason Todd.
They're jerks. They're jerks. And unlike you, I like the Red Hood character. I tend to toss out his attachment to Batman or whatever, fine, whatever, blah. I can just kind of tune that out. Him and the way he approached the stuff and whatnot prior to this, I've always kind of liked. I like the fact that he might as well be a villain because he's so hard-edged and whatnot. He'll shoot whoever he needs to shoot and do whatever he thinks he needs to do, and he's a little nuts about how he goes about doing that. I don't have a problem with that. Like I said, I kind of like the character. In this, no, I don't like him. He's all the crappy stuff that he says and whatnot. The stupid. I hope you got backup, and I got 38 of them. Obviously, referring to. To Starfire, certainly that's in my opinion, that's treating the Starfire character in poor fashion. But I guess that's okay to some degree if that's Jason Todd's personality. Mm-hmm. And I also understand that to some degree, these are the two guys being quote unquote guys. Well, you know what? Thank God I never really hung out with the guys because this is that kind of don't like the pigeonhole or stereotype or whatever. This is that whole kind of jocular, we're cool, studly guys crap that I don't like. I don't want
Hmm.
to. I don't want to hang around with guys that are like this. I don't necessarily want to read about guys that are like this. Um, so I'm kind of hoping that this is all just them not knowing how to deal with each other, and so they're being kind of cool, manly, macho guys, and this is their way of bonding because they can't figure out how to bond otherwise.
Hmm.
And if the story progresses, that they will come out of these moronic shells and become a little more human, because there are occasionally glimpses in there of that they actually might really care about something. Well, not Roy so much. Roy's pretty vacant in this thing. I know on the internet everybody has this, having fits over how Starfire's portrayed about how the fact she's just a mindless goldfish. Well, how is Harper any different? I don't see him as he has no value in this. Hanging out or what? I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
I thought he was
What does Roy bring to the table here?
he just another stupid character.
You know, why did Jason go in and rescue him? What's the importance of that
Because
action?
his comment though. Oh, because I had to make sure you stay alive because if you weren't around, I'd be the dumbest sidekick or the lamest sidekick or whatever they say.
Uh-huh.
There's something there. I want to think that there's something potentially more to this comic than what was there. There are occasional hints. I could see where they could take this stuff and make it somewhat interesting. But right now, that's not there.
Hmm.
It's like I said, there's way too much. And here I am. I'm going to date myself. There's way too much Porky's the movie in this comic. That whole masturbatorial stupidity. Now, I can also look at the whole Starfire thing and go, okay, she's an alien. She views everything different, and I'm not hung up on the fact that she's commenting on the fact that she doesn't really remember the Teen Titans or whatever, because we really have no idea what those people really were. I'm not even sure why they even threw that in. But some of the stuff that a lot of people are excited about on the internet, I could care less about. I can see it for what it is. Maybe this is supposed to be DC's version of the action movie, because
The
most
buddy cop action
movies,
movie. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And so I guess if that's what it is, fine. But it doesn't appeal to me. These two guys, if they can't figure out how to grow up, and at some point act like somewhat like what I would consider a real human being instead of jackasses, I won't be reading the comic very long.
Hmm.
It's on my pull, so I'll be getting a few issues because I'm pre-ordered for at least 3. And I probably won't take them off my pull until I read number 2 and see what number 2's like. But yeah, I don't know. I'm curious to see what the writers do. If it maintains this, if this is what it's going to maintain through it, with this somewhat potentially serious plot line with this character who I don't know at all. This Essence person, do you know
Yeah.
that?
No, I
So I
don't know
don't know
if
if she's
this is a new
somebody
character
new
or not.
or not. That whole thing is somewhat interesting. He obviously has got more going on in his life than just laying around on the beach and going out and occasionally shooting people. As far as Jason Scott character goes, there is nothing else to Roy's character, to the best of my knowledge, other than he supposedly was helping some freedom fighters that obviously then turned on him. And I don't know. I like the art. I think the art's an interesting style, but yeah, don't know. But I just think it's a dumb comic right now. It's well, they're dumb people. They're the type of people. I guess why I consider it a dumb comic. They're the type of people that I would want nothing to do with. So why am I going to read that?
Hmm. Yeah.
I'm not going to enjoy it. I'm going to go, oh God, could they be any bigger jerks? But I don't have a problem with the Starfire end of the thing. The fact that she's an alien and she addresses things differently than everybody else does, I don't have an issue with that one bit. Yes, she is not the Starfire that was from the Teen Titans Go. She's not that character, obviously. And man, I feel sorry for anybody who picks up this comic thinking that's what they're going to get, because this would be an extremely rude shock if that's what you were going into this thinking your Starfire was going to be.
Hmm.
Just deal with the fact there is more than one version of Starfire as far as that part goes.
Yeah.
I mean,
See, that complaint, I saw that. That there's I don't know if you saw the comic that somebody drew about that comparison
Yeah.
and commenting
Right.
on that. You know,
Right.
if I understand what they're saying, but
Same here.
if you don't, or if you go into comics expecting the comics to be exactly like the multimedia that you're looking at,
Uh-huh.
the movies or the cartoon shows on TV or whatever, man, you don't know comics.
Right.
And I'm not, that sounds like an excuse, but um, it is what it is. I mean, the comics are always different from the other media projects that they got going on. Um, you just got to be, if your little girl wants to read Red Hood and the Outlaws because Starfire's in it, and
Say
she
no.
likes Starfire because of the cartoon, man, you better be reading that damn comic and not letting her read that, because this
Right.
is not that, and I don't, and it shouldn't be. Starfire should not be depicted in this comic in this way as she is in the cartoon. If you want to
Yeah.
read the cartoon version, go buy the old comics that came out. Um,
Well,
I,
you're reasonably well versed in Starfire. Obviously, you were collecting the Titans when the character was first, right? Because that's where she's first introduced at, right?
oh yeah, hmm,
Okay, so we've been reading her since birth, basically.
yeah.
I mean, they did change her some, but she's not totally off the map, is she, as far as how they've been portraying her over the years, right?
Not not completely, no. I mean, she was always a sexual character, and for especially for the early '80s in comics, I thought that she was I would say she was pretty risque in the way that
Hell
she was
yeah.
portrayed then, and that was very tame in comparison to
Yeah.
this.
Right.
But she's always been that way because she's an alien, and they express themselves in a more physical manner, and sex wasn't just it's not the hang up for them like it is for us.
Right.
So this stays in character
Yeah. I'm kind of
for me.
bothered by her comment about, well, maybe it isn't her comment. I guess it's Jason's comment about the fact that she doesn't really see humans as
Okay, yeah, I'm glad you brought that up.
that part kind of bugged me. But
Well,
that may just
it bugged me, and it also intrigued me in a way because uh, because she's alien. They're really focusing on the aspect that even though she looks human to a certain
right.
degree,
Aliens are alien.
she is more alien now than she ever has been, and I really like the idea that as Jason said, Tamaranians see humans as not much more than sights and smells.
Right.
I don't care for that whole short attention span about all things Earth, because that's dumb, and the
Yeah.
fact that she doesn't remember Dick and all the other Titans that they hung out, and to me, I read this very clearly that the Titans that we knew, to whatever degree that we have them, they did exist before this, the Teen
For
Titans
some
that we.
period of time. Right.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
The fact that she doesn't remember anybody, that I don't care for that.
Yeah.
The whole her throwing herself at, or I'm sorry, she did not throw herself at
No.
Roy. She just simply stated, "Do
Simply
you want to have
stated.
sex?" That
If
because
not, I'll find somebody else. Yeah.
yeah, she just, and who knows, maybe over time this develops into this is how she deals with her loneliness. Um, Again, like you said, there's a lot of things in here where, yeah, there's a lot of bad buddy cop, juvenile humor, junior high type humor stuff that's in here. But there are snippets of there's something else going on here with his characters, especially Jason. And I'll tell you what, you know how much I don't like Jason Todd? I read
Yep.
this and I went, oh my God, I actually kind of like him in this comic. That's not to say that I will continue with this. Like you, I'm pre-ordered for 3. I'm trying to decide right now after reading the solicitation for number 4 if I want to get that. But it features a battle between Corey and Starfire. Do they actually call her Corey in this? I don't remember. But anyway, there's
Yeah. No.
this green alien looks like a Gordanian is coming after
Mm.
her, so I might want to get that just to see that. Um, but there's something else going on here. I don't, the whole thing with Essence and these nondescript shadow organizations. There's a lot of that going on in the New 52, where these you got these cabals manipulating things and trying to get at the superheroes and doing this and doing that. That's just too much of that. I think they should have looked at everything company wide and said, oh, you know what, you shouldn't be doing that. We already have that in 4 other different places. Anyway, that's just a minor complaint. Um, so I again, like the Catwoman thing, I think some of the sexuality here is a little over the top. They didn't need to, they didn't need to put basically these pasties on her breasts. I mean,
So you don't like the new costume? Is that what you're saying?
I don't like the breast part of it. That's just stupid. I understand her being, her being a Tamarinian. They're supposed to be freer and all that stuff, and I suppose maybe this reflects that. But she's covered from her thigh down to her feet.
Uh-huh.
Why would you not cover a
And
more?
her
And
shoulders.
her shoulders are covered. Why would you not cover your
So here's
chest?
my question: do you think she wears a uniform at all because she has to operate in some level of the social norms of Earth? Because
Okay.
my thought was thinking at one point I was thinking as I'm reading this and going, why, because granted this is a new as opposed to the old, but I mean wasn't it like 52? She's spending all of her time hanging out at Buddy Baker, that old man's house,
Hmm.
the backyard, swimming in the swimming pool naked and whatnot, right? Isn't that what that book's in? It's in one of them.
Yeah, yeah, I know what you're talking
So
about.
I'm thinking, why does she even bother? Other
Well,
than we'd have a really hard time, them making the comic book.
okay, but then actually put that in as a part of her character. Have her say something, or have somebody else say something about that. Then I can understand that a little bit more. But again, you are a
She's
warrior.
alien though, and maybe that's just her taste.
You're a
Maybe they like
warrior
wearing
alien
weird.
princess, and
You like wearing weird little straps and stuff.
yeah, you're not. But so you're a warrior princess, and you don't cover yourself to protect your body unless you're
Uh-huh.
invulnerable. That makes no sense whatsoever. So just from that standpoint, this costume design it's just to titillate the younger reader, the younger male readers, I would say in general.
It doesn't titillate old readers.
Okay, maybe titillate some readers. How about that? I tend to think that they're trying to go for a younger male
Well,
audience with this one.
sure they are.
So
Well, I think they are just because this is to a large degree, like I said, there may be those little hints in there of some other story, but to a large degree, this just falls under that comic book. I said I really hope they don't make.
hmm hmm I did want to make a comment too. You mentioned the art, about liking the art. Uh,
Uh-huh.
I do and I don't. There's certain elements of the art that I really like, and some of it I really don't. So that, like especially the first few pages, where it's a lot of ink thrown on faces, and the, those shapes on the tips of people's noses, on everybody's noses. That really bugs me.
The little shine. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And even Red Hood has the shine on his. And granted they do kind of show the helmet is kind of shiny, but that really bugs me. But the stuff where Starfire is drawn, and I think that has, again, kind of like with Catwoman, that has a lot to do, I think, with the color artist using the
Oh,
colors
right.
to accentuate the shape of the body, and the light source and all that. That stuff
Hmm.
looks really good. And then when we get to the island bit, that's where I think, oh gosh, what's his name? Kenneth Rocafort really
Uh-huh.
shines here, especially like there's that scene where Starfire is coming on to Roy. Uh, the stuff around the edges of the page, where he incorporates the jungle, the flowers, and the sand, the beach, and all that stuff, and the way he kind of melds that into the whole page. That's nice art. I just like the composition of it for the most part.
Hmm.
But yeah, the part where they use these hard line inked areas to denote form. I don't know. I don't care for it. And like I said, the nose shine crap, man, that gets old real fast for me.
See, I guess I like the art because it's different from everything else we're seeing.
Well, oh, it is definitely.
It's a different style.
Artistically, it
Just,
certainly stands out.
sometimes I like the fact, even if there are parts of it I'm not a big fan of, I like the fact that it's stylistically different than all the other books. Because
Hmm.
some of their books, they all look like comic book art.
Yeah.
They look like the standard superhero comic book art, and this is a little bit different, so I kind of like it for that.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. And I really like the way that the artist is drawing Starfire's bolts, energy bolts.
Yep. I like her hair too.
Yeah, the hair too. That looks nice. Although, it's kind of hard to get. I know this is the past coming into the present, but it's hard to see them as these pinkish bolts.
Oh, sure, as opposed to, yeah.
To what it
I like it.
was. But yeah, it's interesting. I don't think I'll continue with it much more than a few issues.
Yeah.
All right. Supergirl is next, I believe. Yes, it is.
Yep.
Let's see. Supergirl number 1. And I need to get to the credits page. Hold on one second. And, oh, I missed it. Ah. Here we go. Last Daughter of Krypton is the title of the comic. Excuse me. Writers, there are 2 of them, Michael Green and
Yep.
Mike Johnson, with Mahmoud Asrar as penciler, Dan Green with Mr. Asrar as the inker, and Dave McCraig as the colorist. That's a lot of people working on this comic. And I wasn't all that impressed with it, actually.
Really?
Yeah, I mean, it was, so here you get Supergirl's arrival on Earth, and she gets attacked because there's this whole anti-alien sentiment on Earth, which I find interesting because we're seeing this in a lot of different books. They even talk about it in the Red Hood and the Outlaws as well.
Yep.
Basically, it's just one big fight scene, and we see Kara discovering her superpowers, and then Superman shows up. So from that perspective, from that plot synopsis, I was not very impressed with it. I certainly don't care for the new costume from the bottom down. I just think that's whoever, if that's Jim Lee or what's the other guy that was doing a lot of the designs?
Coley Hammer?
Coley Hammer? Yeah, I don't know who came up with that, but that's crap. There were a few moments where I thought the story kind of shined a little bit, where we get the internal monologue with her. I kind of like that. The alien in an alien land. I like that aspect of it. And then specifically, and it's just a really short moment, but where one of the guys in the robotic suits, she busts into his thing and she's yelling at him, but she's speaking Kryptonian. He doesn't understand it. She doesn't understand English. But despite all that, so she's holding him by his throat, and obviously this girl could tear him apart if she wanted to. And he says, "We can help you." Now, that just may be, anti-alien dogma going on there. But for some reason, I took him at his word that he genuinely cares about this person and wants to protect her to some degree. And I'm probably totally putting my spin on what this character is saying, but it touched me in a way that I like that part of the story.
No, I mean, he's clearly saying she's just a kid. Let's just bring her in.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
As opposed to, let's take her down. I mean, once he gets close enough and realizes, wait a second, this is not, and he has to know he's a dead man, and she's not just killing him, so she must not be, purely evil, or she would have just squished him.
Right.
She's
just a scared little girl, despite the fact that she's an alien. She's just a scared little girl,
right?
Who could tear him apart if she wanted to. What do you think of this issue?
Actually, I kind of liked it. I like the art a lot. I think I mentioned this in my video cast too. Her costume, the lower half of her costume, I was like, what? People are having fits over all these other things and whatnot, and people are commenting, they like this. And quite frankly, that bikini line is awfully high. I thought. It's like, wow, they have issues with their wearing a skirt before. Somebody might be looking up her skirt or whatever. I'm like, well, now the skirt doesn't even hide that.
Yeah.
So, So I like her cape though. The cape is freaking cool.
The cape looks really cool. Yeah. It's just that from the waist down, I can't stand that design.
Yeah. But I liked it. I liked her landing and her, is this a dream or whatnot? And we get filled in on, we kind of get an idea of what her age is, she's not, obviously she hasn't graduated yet because the clothing she's wearing, she wasn't supposed to be wearing until she, was graduating, if she graduates, granted, once the robots show up, it gets a little less entertaining as far as that goes, because then it does become a knock the robots around part, and I don't know about that part. I like when the sun comes up and her eye beams go off. I kind of like that part. And the fact that she figures out she can smack these guys around and stuff, and then she's just trying to get away. I don't know. Like I said, I kind of enjoyed it. I'm looking forward to the whole alien aspect. The fact that they're going to maintain the fact that she hasn't acclimatized herself to being a human and being on Earth and all that sort of stuff. I'm looking forward to seeing how that is going to get addressed.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe that's why I like the comic, because I'm looking forward to that. And maybe it's not this comic in particular. I think it's funny that her cousin shows up at the end, Superman shows up at the end.
Mm-hmm.
That'll be interesting. But I really like the art. It's got my 10-year-old daughter's seal of approval.
Oh, good.
And she's not a really big comic book fan, but I've been kind of pushing comics on her lately just to see what she thinks of things and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
She must have really liked this, because when I asked her about what she thought of it and whatnot, her first question was when does the next one come out? So I figured it's a sell point from that standpoint. This is the comic she's interested in most. She's also reading she's reading Static Shock, and she hasn't read Blue Beetle yet, but she plans on it and whatnot. But this is the book she's interested in.
Oh, good.
So I think it works from there. Like I said, she has no working knowledge of Supergirl at all, other than her assumption is she's a younger version of Superman. It's a girl.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, she has zero operating of what Supergirl is about. And she got it. She understood it. And I kind of quizzed her as much as I could on it. What do you think was going on? What do you think was going on here and whatnot? So, I don't know. I'm interested in the next issue. Was it like stellar, knock my socks off? No. I like the artist though. The artist can work on whatever he wants to, as far as I'm concerned.
Really? I found the art kind of clunky.
Hmm.
I don't know if that's the inking or what, but there's nothing inherently wrong with it. I mean, it's a little different from your typical superhero stuff, so that's okay. But I don't know. There's certain parts of it that
I keep flipping back and forth through it, trying to figure out what part of his own art did he ink and what part did somebody else ink.
Yeah, exactly. Because if you look at, there's that scene.
I wonder when we get to the robot fights and stuff that the art becomes somebody else's.
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering. Because the stuff where it's just her looks a little different.
Yeah.
And especially that part where the sun comes up and you get that one page of it's alternating panels of close up on her face and then the sun coming up in the background.
Uh-huh.
I really like the look of that. That looks good. But yeah, some of the other part of it, and like I said, it's probably the different inking going on.
I also like the fact she has the body of a younger girl.
Yes. Yeah. Which would explain too why they didn't get an artist that could do, and not that this artist can't, but we didn't get more of a a Catwoman and Red Hood and the Outlaws esque cheesecake design. Because this is supposed to be a young teenage girl, and we don't want to accentuate the sexuality of a young teenage girl.
I hope not.
I'm speaking in terms of what DC I'm sure what editorial would say, but so yeah, I like that the body type is super heroic is not
right
over
which
the
leads
top.
us back to that, which leads us back to her bottom half of her costume that makes you go, what?
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway.
Put you know what I object about most is I understand what you're saying about the high hip aspect of that part of her costume. It's mostly the damn boots that bug me. Yeah, and that the S shape red spot in the front of her, in her belly and pelvic area. What that just calls your attention there. Why would they do that? That design just stinks. They could have done a much better design for Supergirl. But did we talk about? Was this? Do you think? Did we talk about new reader friendly aspect of this? Because I think it is.
Well, my assumption is it's new reader friendly. Like I said, if my 10-year-old daughter can read it and she pretty much understands what's going on through it, and like I said, she's probably read 4 comic books in her life, I would say that pretty much says it's new reader friendly.
Yeah. And she shows up on Earth. This is her first day on Earth, and here she is. So yeah, from a plot standpoint, that's the same thing. So, all right, last one. Go ahead.
Wonder Woman #1 by written by Brian Arizio, Cliff Chang. Is he just doing pencils, or is he? I gotta find the title page.
He is. He's the artist.
Yeah. Cliff Chang is the artist, and Matthew Wilson does colors. And I really like this book.
Mm-hmm.
I like the way it looks. I really like the new Wonder Woman. Come on, she gets to headbutt somebody in it, so that makes it an awesome comic right there. That alone makes it an awesome comic. I noticed on Twitter, on your little one little tweet comment about the books that you're reading and whatnot, you didn't think that there was enough Wonder Woman in this title.
Mm-hmm.
And I disagree, because we all know who Wonder Woman is, really. I mean, they're going to change some. We've heard they're going to change some stuff about the character, but as a general concept, she's like Batman and Superman. Everybody knows who Wonder Woman is,
Mm-hmm.
and so they spent their time setting up the story and whatnot,
Mm-hmm.
and giving us more information on who else she's going to be dealing with before we get introduced to her. Because
Mm-hmm.
you're right, we don't see Wonder Woman in the comic at all until literally the middle of the comic. We're halfway through it before she's even introduced at all. But I don't know. I mean, I thought the thing set a great tone right off from the very beginning. Gives us, this obviously this black-skinned guy who's, doing something. You've got this mysterious person in a peacock cloak,
Mm-hmm.
and depending on how steeped you are in other mythologies and what mythologies you've read, that might mean something.
Well, that's Hera, isn't it?
I would assume so.
Yeah, I think that's.
I would assume so, from what I know. And then the creation of the centaurs is gruesome and cool.
Mm-hmm.
This girl's dealing with. I don't know. I really liked it. It was exciting. It's got action almost right off the bat, to keep you entertained as far as that goes. Cliff Chang's style. I don't know. I love the looks on Wonder Woman's face and whatnot
Mm-hmm.
through the thing. The part where she jumps up and blocks the arrow with her bracers is freaking cool.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I was excited by this comic. This is one of my favorite comics to come out of the new 52.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thrilled to death to see where the heck they're going to take this thing and whatnot. I love the oracles that are in this. The fact that they maintain some of what I'm assuming is their humanoid personalities, they're being used as oracles. Before at the end they all get burnt up and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I'm all for this comic. So.
Well, okay. So I'll explain my tweet a little bit more.
Okay.
I pretty much agree with you. I really like the setup here. I like the plot setup especially. I love the fact that Apollo seems to be the antagonist of the story instead of Ares, because
Right.
we get that all the time.
All the time.
I really like the design of Apollo, because he looks like he's oh gosh, what do they? Man, my brain is just not working. What do you call it when the moon blocks out the sun?
An eclipse.
Thank you.
Boy, man.
He looks like a human eclipse, because his eyes, he's got that.
Sure.
It looks like he's got the sunlight inside of him, and then his body's blocking that, so he looks dark.
Mm-hmm.
I love the look. I really like. I wasn't sure of Cliff Chang's work based on the cover image that we saw initially, but going through this, he has some really interesting ways of drawing. Some of it doesn't quite come across as well, like that one splash page with the centaurs coming through. It doesn't quite look like some of the other panels that we get. And maybe, I don't know if that's intentional or if it's just him being rushed or whatnot, but the stuff he has of Zola and Diana looks really nice, especially when Diana gets into her uniform, and
Uh,
they go back to that farmhouse thing. That stuff looks really cool. You mentioned the shot of Diana blocking that arrow, just dynamic. I mean,
yeah,
the way that page is set up, where you get that first panel, you see the arrow whooshing out of the house. It's going. You get the next panel, which is almost the perspective of the arrow as it heads
right.
towards Zola, and Diana's moving in to intercept it, and then crash with that arrow being blocked by her braces. That's just some amazing action drawing there. That just looks really cool. And the rest of the fight scene's pretty interesting. I question some of the anatomy or the way that Diana's posed in some way. I don't know. Some of it just kind of bugs me a little bit, but not in any great fashion. Although I'm not an artist, so
Right. See, I just think I think he's another stylized artist. And
yeah,
so there,
yeah,
some of that stuff looks different than the traditional,
that's true.
straightforward,
That's true.
four
Um,
color superhero.
I love the way he draws the women in the comics and
Yeah.
in this title. They all have, although their eyes are all the women seem to have kind of roundish eyes. So that's a little nitpicky thing, but they're very clearly, Zola looks different from Diana, and the oracles look different, but they look very nice. I love the way he draws Diana's top.
Yeah.
In comparison to,
Yeah.
say, Jim Lee, the stuff I've seen from Jim Lee, I'm not so keen on how Jim draws it. But Cliff Chiang, I really like his Wonder Woman outfit. It looks really cool on her.
Uh-huh.
Let's see. So like I said about the tweet about I said something about not enough of Wonder Woman in it, and on the page, yeah, she doesn't show up until almost halfway through, but it's not so much how much panel time that she has. It's how much the story is focused through Zola that I was commenting on. I
Oh,
would have liked
yeah.
to have seen more of this story from Diana's perspective, but I'm sure we'll get that. It's just I thought it was an odd way, to some degree, to introduce new readers to this new version of Wonder Woman by doing it through Zola, and not necessarily through her eyes, but the focus is definitely on her character. But she's an important character. I mean, she's carrying the son of Zeus, or the child of Zeus. Although the
Right.
implication, I think, at the end is perhaps that Zeus is reborning himself. Did you get that idea?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Because he's gone, he's disappeared, and the oracles say he doesn't exist yet. And then
It's, yeah.
Apollo says, "Fascinating." So I think that's where we're going with it. And of course, like I said, I think that's Hera trying to kill Zola because, Hera, as in traditional mythology, has often been shown as jealous of Zeus's infidelities.
Yep.
And so, she's taken people out, or maybe
Right.
trying to claim the throne of the gods from Zeus by killing him if indeed he's the one being reborn. But yeah, this is a great, I think, first issue. Like you said before, Wonder Woman's one of those characters you don't really need to know the backstory, especially from the get-go. You just get into the story, and what the story that we've been given here is, I think, pretty darn good. It's a great opening, action-oriented. I know that there was some talk about this being a quote-unquote horror title.
Right.
I don't see that. There's some cool imagery, somewhat horrific imagery in here. The horses getting their heads lobbed off, but
Right.
this is a mythological tale. This is not a horror
Right.
tale like we normally define what horror is.
Right.
But that's okay.
I think it's gonna be a little more sinister.
Hmm.
I think it's a little more sinister maybe than what traditionally the Wonder Woman comics have been.
Hmm.
Than horror. Yeah. Yeah. When you use the word horror, I don't know.
It has a
I don't.
whole different connotation than what I read.
Right. Right.
So
But I'm not. Like I said, I'm definitely looking forward to the comic. I'm
oh yeah.
really curious to see where it goes and whatnot. I know the internet's exploding at this point because we hear Wonder Woman has a dad, and of course traditionally she's never had a dad, and so
Oh
there's
yeah.
some craziness around that, and this is so much better than what JMS introduced to us in the last supposed relaunch of Wonder Woman that I'm not even going to lose any sleep over the fact that potentially she could cut. And I understand that potentially changes a huge amount of tradition around it and whatnot. And, there's a segment of the comic book reading population that just points to this as another way that's an attack on feminism, that she has a dad or whatever. I don't care. For me, that doesn't matter as long as it's going to be a good story. And I think I think the character is going to be treated so much better than she has been in the last 12 months. That I think the last reboot was a shame. I think it did nothing for the character. I think this one's going to be great. It's going to be a lot. It's going to be big for the character.
Mm. Well, potentially so.
I think so.
I disagree with you. I thought the JMS, that year-long story, I thought that was a pretty good Wonder Woman story. Now, did it set up Wonder Woman to be this really cool, fascinating, should be part of the big three of DC Comics? No, but I actually really enjoyed that story. It was a good Wonder Woman story. But I see the potential here for exactly the same thing in Brian Azzarello's and Cliff Chang's Wonder Woman. So looking forward to it. Yep. Okay, that is it. That's week 3 of the DC New 52. Travis, next time we get together, we'll talk about the final week of the 52, and maybe I'm sure we'll talk about. I'd like to talk about with you. Maybe we'll do this after that, but I want to get together maybe after month 2 issues have come out. And just kind of not necessarily talk about specific issues, but talk about, what are our thoughts about how the New 52 stack up now that we've had a couple months of reading under our belts, and how we formulate our thoughts about where DC is going with this and how successful we think it is.
Sure.
So yeah, I'm looking forward to that conversation especially. But join us next time for our views on week 4. Travis, you have anything that you want to bring up or?
Nope. Look forward to the next week.
Okay. Well then, until next time, be sure to visit our blogs. Email us your thoughts. longboxreview@gmail.com. We're also on Twitter. I'm sure people now know this stuff. I'm not going to repeat it, but it's also on the blog, so you can go there and get a hold of us. Also, please, if you don't mind. Review us on iTunes. I'd like to get some reviews on there and get some more exposure, get more people listening to the podcast. I'd really appreciate it. With that, I think we're done, Travis. Thank you very much.
Yep. Have a good one.
You too. Thanks for listening.